Hey everyone, let's talk about how Bitcoin will reach $1 million per coin and how it will feel as it does that. First, a lot of people think when an investment goes up by a factor of 10, meaning you make 10 times your money, that somehow like they're going to walk outside one morning and there will be writing in the sky that says, you were early, you made a ton of money, this new asset's incredible, something like that. Or that they're going to see on the news that everybody's talking about this new thing that they bought, before it went up and how high it is and it's euphoric and like it's utopia and all that sort of stuff. That's just not how it works when assets go up by a factor of 10. What happens is they grind higher, they fall back, they grind higher, they grind down, they grind sideways, they grind up. And somehow, over a long enough period of time, you notice that, wait a second, we're 10 times higher than the price I originally bought it at. So that has been my experience from the very first Bitcoin I bought in around $9,000, although my average price, I think my average price was $10,000, but the very first Bitcoin I bought was, I think, around $10,000. So let's use 10,000 just for round numbers, 10,000 to 100,000. So what was my experience from 10,000 to 100,000, which is 10x. I made 10x on that money. Now I should have bought a lot more Bitcoin, but so should everyone have. So my experience was I bought it, and then it went down some, and then it went up some, and then it went down some, and then it ground sideways for a really long time, and I bought some more, but not enough. I should have bought a lot more, and then it basically bounced around all through the rest of 2018 and 2019 and 2020. And then I noticed in 2021 that it's like, wow, it's like significantly up from where I bought it. But again, it had been, grinding around for two or 3 years. And I've noticed, wow, it's significantly up from where I bought it. And then, it went way up in 2021 to about 7 times what I paid for it, up to 70,000. Then it dropped way back down in 2022 and it ground around in 2023, and then it climbed in 23, climbed in 24, and here we are, it's climbing, for the first half of 2025. So there we go, 10 times my money. And the question is, how many times during that time did I feel euphoric? Did I feel like a genius? Did I feel like, wow, this asset that I've owned for all this time is now way, way, way up, and, everybody's talking about it. And the answer is in an entire 2.5 year time frame, since, well, I guess it's been, since let's call it 2017, 2018, in that 8 years that it's been 10x, there's only been a handful of times, fewer than 10 in 8 years, probably fewer than 8 in 8 years, where it felt like it was going way up and this is amazing and I'm a genius and it's fabulous. It's just not that often. And so let me use a tighter time frame because it's easier to tell the story with a tighter time frame, from a timeline perspective. So Bitcoin has 7x'd in the last 2.5 years. So it started at the beginning of 2023 at below $17,000, 16,000 something. And it is up a factor of between 6 and 7 times your money since the beginning of 2023, so 2.5 years. Okay, so in that 2.5 years, I only remember maybe 5 or 6 times that it felt like, wow, this thing is really taking off like a rocket. This is fantastic. It's going up. I love it. This is amazing. That's not that much. That's not that much. Most of the last 2.5 years has been grinding sideways, grinding down, grinding slowly up. It's just been grinding and nobody's paying attention. If you rewind to that experience, I remember when it went from the teens to the 20s, because that happened relatively quickly. I remember the 20s to the 30s, the 30s to the 40s, so that's 3. Then the 40s to the 70s happened quite quickly after the ETFs were approved. And then I remember 8 months later, that's a long time, 8 months later of grinding sideways after a big jump from the 40s to the 70s, we ground sideways for 8 solid months. Because again, the market just had to digest that upswing. When any asset moves very quickly, that high, that fast, the market's going to do some grinding called chopsolidation or consolidation or chopsolidation, or my preferred term, grinding sideways, because that's what it feels like. It just feels like you're grinding. It's got to do that because you can't move that fast without a bunch of people in the marketplace wanting to adjust their position. There's a bunch of new people that want to buy, but there's also a bunch of people that have been there a long time that are ready for some liquidity to do whatever it is, improve the lives of themselves, their family, whatever it is they do. And you got to grind sideways while all of those people make up their mind and trade out their coins and do all that stuff. So it took 8 months. And then I remember the jump from the 70,000s to the 90,000s and the 90,000s to, roughly 110. But that's only like 5 or 6 big jumps that I remember in 2.5 years. So the vast majority of the 2.5 years have felt like grinding. It's just felt like grinding. And here we are. I've made, of all the money I bought in, late 2022 and early 2023, I've made 6 times my money. But the vast majority of that time period has just felt like grinding. It's felt like owning any investment that's just like waiting, long periods of waiting. Same with the Bitcoin I bought in late 2017 and early 2018. It's been 8 years, and it's been mostly just grinding. It just feels like it's grinding, going nowhere, going a little up, going a little down. But then you look in the rearview mirror and it's like, well, I've made 10 times that money. So same thing is going to happen here from 100,000 to 1 million. The huge percentage of that time is going to feel like you're grinding. It's going to feel like it's going nowhere. It's going to feel like it's slowly grinding down. And my guess is there's going to be a relatively few number of times that you think, this is euphoric, this is amazing, I love this, I'm a genius, everybody's talking about Bitcoin. There's just not going to be that many times between here and 1 million. That's just not how investing works. To give you an example of that, the Magnificent 7 stocks, which are the 7 best performing stocks in the U.S. stock market over the last 10 years, I think pretty much all of them have made 5 to 10 times the money in the last 5 or 10 years. So let's just use round numbers. 5 to 10 times your money in the last 5 or 10 years. But if you think about it, how many times do you remember people talking about Microsoft and Facebook, and this is as an investment, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, Google, whoever else is part of the Magnificent 7. Most of those companies, Apple's another one. Let's take 5 of those that have been around the longest. Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and Facebook. If you rewind 5 or 10 years, almost everybody thought that those stocks were already expensive, that there wasn't that much upside left. And over the last 5 or 10 years, you probably heard almost nobody talk about how, what a rocket ship that those stocks were. The short take is 5 or 10 years went by and each of those stocks went up by a factor of 5 to 10x, or, some significant amount. I forget the exact numbers. But the short take is there was no writing on the wall. There was no writing in the sky. There was no, universal euphoria where everyone celebrated, everyone who had invested in Microsoft or Amazon or Apple or Google or Facebook. That's just not how it works. Generally, nobody's paying attention. Even in the last 2 or 3 years, the price of gold, the total market capitalization of gold, has added $10 trillion. $10 trillion is a ridiculously large amount of money. 10 trillion. So the market capitalization of gold has gone from, let's call it, to use round numbers, 12 trillion to 24 trillion in just the last 2 or 3 years. Now, adding 12 trillion to the market cap of gold, or 10 trillion, is larger. Even the largest U.S. Companies, the ones I just mentioned, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, even those companies are only worth between 1.5 trillion and $3 trillion each, which means gold in the last 2 or 3 years has added more market capitalization than probably the top 5 companies in the world combined. But again, how much have you heard about gold? Probably zero. Probably not a single person listening to this video knows that gold added $10 trillion in market capitalization. That's a ridiculously large amount. Now, gold's market capitalization has always been the largest asset, and so $10 trillion only doubles the price of gold, which means, is it a great investment? No, because in the same amount of time that you could be up 6 times your money on Bitcoin, you're only up 2 times your money on gold. So I don't recommend it. But if $10 trillion poured into Bitcoin, we'd be at, 500,000 a coin overnight. Just like boom. In fact, 10 trillion of new money pouring in all of a sudden would probably push us to $1 million per coin. But again, it's not going to happen that fast. Nothing happens that fast. And again, the only reason gold can add $10 trillion because it was already a $10 trillion asset before that happened. And gold's been around a really long time. And most of the buying is coming from central banks that can print money out of thin air and turn around and buy gold with it, which is what they're doing. And so obviously an asset like that can add market capitalization. Again, I don't think it's a good investment because it doesn't grow quickly compared to its size, but it added 10 trillion. But again, did you know that gold added $10 trillion in market capitalization? No, because nobody's talking about it. So the same thing is going to happen and is happening in the case of Bitcoin. You will hear people say that Bitcoin will bore you to death between here at $1 million a coin. And that is exactly what's going to happen. Between now and $1 million per coin, you're going to be bored out of your mind. There will be very long periods of time where it seems like nothing's happening. There will be long periods of time where it seems like it's grinding slowly down. There will be, just lots of boredom, lots of frustration, lots of, 30% price dips along the way to wipe out anybody that's, buying Bitcoin with leverage, which means with borrowed money. Those people are all going to get consistently, wiped out of the market. So all of that's going to happen, and it's just going to be boring. And then at some point, you're going to wake up, and Bitcoin's going to be $1 million per coin. And people are going to say, "Ooh, wow, that's amazing. You got so lucky," which you didn't get lucky. You did the hard work of understanding Bitcoin. It's not luck. If you do the hard work of understanding what you own, then you deserve the gains when they come. But again, all the people that did not do the hard work are just going to think you got lucky. All right, but when that happens and Bitcoin hits $1 million per coin and everybody's like, "Wow, you bought in 2024 or 2025 or whatever, that must have been a euphoric ride." And the answer is no, it wasn't. It was not a euphoric ride because the majority of that 5 or 10 years between, 100,000 a coin and $1 million per coin, the vast majority of that time was a grind, and it sucked. And it felt like, lots of second guessing. And did you make the right decision? And why is Bitcoin not going anywhere? Why is the price stuck? But again, you zoom out and it's like, yeah, but then it went from 100,000 to 1 million. And that's what happened. It was brutal. It was grinding. It was boring. It was, it sucked. And you made 10 times your money for a Bitcoin you bought at 10x. And if you bought it at, or 100,000, if you bought Bitcoin at 67,000, you made whatever, 15 times your money, whatever that is. Anyway, so that's what the path is going to be like. It is going to feel boring, frustrating, annoying most of the time. I would imagine between, 100,000 and 1 million a coin, you will probably get, let's call it 8 to 10 periods, multi-day periods of euphoria where Bitcoin is, and I think one of those is coming soon here, where suddenly we go from 107,000 a coin to 120. But if we do that, it's probably going to take place about over the course of 2 or 3 days. So you're going to feel great for 2 or 3 days. And then you're going to feel sucky for 2 or 3 months, or 6 months, or 8 months, or a year, as Bitcoin grinds and grinds and grinds before it, we get another big up, and then it goes to 150, and then it goes to 180, and then it goes to 220, and then it goes to 280, and then it goes to 380, and then it goes to 420, and then it goes to 500. And it's like, okay, you got to 500, but there was only 5 or 6 times in the, between now and 500 that you really felt amazing about your investment. And each of those times only lasted a couple days before we were back to grinding at a new higher price. Grinding, grinding, grinding. Always boring, always grinding. So that's what it's going to feel like. There's not going to be any writing on the wall. There's not going to be, the adoption of Bitcoin that's required to get it to $1 million per coin is already happening. It's literally already happening right in front of your eyes, right underneath your feet. It's already happening. And the process is going to feel like a bunch of what it feels like right now for a really long time, which is going to feel like forever, the next 5 or 10 years. And then we'll be at $1 million per coin. And then you, like everyone else, will wish they had bought a lot more Bitcoin when it was a lot cheaper. Because that is everyone's universal experience, is that they wish they had bought a lot more, a lot cheaper. And that's just how it works for everyone. So hopefully this video is helpful. Always here to help you on that journey. Hopefully I will help make sure that journey is not too boring, not too grinding. And if you follow people like Jack Mallers with the Jack Mallers Show podcast, which I always listen to every week, or subscribe to James Check with Checkmate is what his tag is, or handle is on Twitter. If you subscribe, people like that will make sure you understand play by play exactly what's happening, why it's happening, all of that, which makes it easier to hold Bitcoin if you at least know why it's going up and down. And people like that are good at explaining. Jack Mallers is good at explaining sort of the long-term horizon of Bitcoin and how what all the politicians are saying plays into why we're going to get where we're going to get. And James Check is fantastic about basically the day-to-day. Every 2 or 3 days, he releases a 10-minute assessment of where we are and why Bitcoin's doing exactly what it's doing. And he's usually spot on, and it makes you not feel like you're flying blind. So anyway, that's my two go-to resources. I always, if I have an email from James Check in my inbox from my $30 a month subscription to him, that's always the very first thing I read. And then if I have a Jack Mallers show for Monday night, which they get recorded Monday nights, that's always the very second thing I do after I read anything from James Check is I listen to Jack Mallers. And then I go, troll Twitter and everything else and see what the news is. But anyway, that's the path from here to $1 million. Lots of boredom, lots of pain. And in the rearview mirror, when it's all said and done, you just wish you had bought more Bitcoin. That's been the story from 10,000 to 100. That was the story from 1,000 to 10,000. That was the story from 100 to 1,000. The process has always been the same. Short periods of euphoria, long periods of pain and grinding, and you'll end up looking in the mirror and you're up 10x, and then you wish you had bought a lot more Bitcoin. And that's the experience. And then you get to enjoy the fruit of your labors, which is the Bitcoin that's up, 10x. It's just about patience, and all investing works that way. So hopefully that helps. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks.